at 6:33 p.m. Madam Clerk, may I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Rogers?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Nava?
Present.
Councilmember Corona?
Present.
Councilmember Rab?
Here.
Mayor Vargas?
Present, thank you. Item 3 is our invocation, which will be led by Pastor Mario Perez from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. If you please stand, remain standing for item 4, which is our Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Councilwoman Rogers. Please come up to the podium, Pastor.
Prayer first.
Yes.
Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for this opportunity we have of coming before you to serve you. We ask your presence in this meeting. Also, we pray that you give us wisdom, insight, and understanding as we deal with the different items on the agenda. We ask for clarity of mind. We pray your Holy Spirit will direct the meeting. And we ask, God, that you would be with each member, each one here present. We thank you that they are serving the city, and we ask that you will continue to bless them as they work together. We ask this in Christ's precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me as we salute our nation's flag.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, item 5 is a report on closed session. Mr. Coot.
Thank you, Mayor. With respect to closed session item A, no reportable action was taken by the City Council. With respect to closed session item B, there's 2 potential cases. For one potential case, there is no reportable action for City Council. For the other potential case, the Council unanimously authorized filing of litigation for a receivership case against Cassandra Ross and Francisco Villa in relation to their property located at 1100 Wilson Avenue. With respect to item C, no reportable action was taken.
Thank you. Item 6 is presentations and announcements. We have none this evening. Item 7 is our advisory committee communication, which will be given by Alexa Flores, the president of the Youth Advisory Committee.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and City staff, good evening. My name is Alexa Flores, and it is a pleasure for me to hold the position of President for YSC. I will be providing you with an update on the most recent and forthcoming YSC events. To start, YSC volunteered at the Movies in the Park event earlier this month. YSC members gathered at Paragon Park, ready to lend a helping hand and to make an event a memorable experience for all. YSC members set up their designated popcorn station and served hot popcorn to the community. Smiles adorned the faces of both the volunteers and attendees, bringing the community together. Furthermore, attending the Empower Your Mind event on May 18th was a transformative experience for the Youth Advisory Committee. We proudly led the Pledge of Allegiance, actively participated in breakout sessions, and found inspiration in the keynote speaker's story. The event reinforced our dedication to make a positive impact, and YSC left eagerly looking forward to next year's conference, where we can continue our journey of personal growth and positive outlook. Senior prom was an unforgettable night filled with joy, laughter, and a sense of celebration. The members of YSC eagerly took part in the event, making it a success. Serving food and bussing tables, although requiring some hard work, seeing the smiles on the seniors' faces made every effort worth it. We also took part in the festivities by dancing and immersing ourselves in the celebratory atmosphere. Moving forward, if you are a young person looking for a chance to showcase your talents, or just someone who enjoys good music and entertainment, be sure to mark your calendar for June 2nd, Open Mic Night, and head down for the Statler Youth Center for what promises to be a memorable night of artistic expressions. In addition, YSC has recently announced that our recruitment period is now open and applications are available on the city's website. YSC is looking for teens between the ages 11 and 17 who are interested in civic engagement and community involvement. Being a member of the government and to make a positive impact in the community is a great way to meet new people and form connections with other youth who are passionate about making a difference. The application deadline is July 21st at 7 p.m., and applications must be turned in at the Statler Youth Center at 120 North Paris Boulevard. The selection process will take place over the following weeks, and those chosen to serve on YEC will be notified via mail. If you or someone you know is interested in applying to be part of YEC, visit the city's website and download an application. Finally, YEC would like to remind everyone to please follow us on social media at Paris YEC for more updates and upcoming events. For more information on YEC or any events discussed today, feel free to dial the Statler Youth Center, and YEC would like to remind everyone to remain safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8 is our public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time on anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing or hearing none, I'll move on to item 9, which is our approval of minutes. 9A is consideration to approve the minutes of the regular joint meeting held on May 9th, 2023 of the City Council and all the other agencies as listed on our agenda. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call a vote.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. 9B is consideration to approve the minutes of a special joint work session held on May 16th, 2023 of the City Council and all the other agencies as listed on our agenda. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Councilman Corona. Please call a vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Item 10 is our consent calendar. Consent calendar are items normally enacted in one motion. The mayor or city council may remove a consent calendar item for a separate action. We will have public comment limited to 3 minutes. Council, anybody have anything they want to pull from the consent calendar?
Yes, Mayor, may I pull item 10G, please, for separate questions?
Before I go on, I got to make a statement here. We had to make a minor correction. I think 10K, the cover sheet was a misprint, so we fixed that. And then there was an attachment, exhibit, local industry market survey that the council all have. It's a better legible document. Was it fixed on the internet as well?
Yes. Yes, but no changes to the report.
Thank you. All right, anybody else to pull any items? All right, hearing none, I'm going to request a motion from 10A through, through R with the exception of G.
Mr. Mayor, before we proceed with the motion,
But I'm going to call for public comment first. God, let me finish. Thank you for the reminder. Okay, anybody have any public comment requests, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Okay, thank you very much. I'll now looking for a motion for 10A through R with the exception of G. And I have a motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Mayor Pro Tem Nava. Please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Pro Tem, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have a representative from CRNR? Thank you. My question is, we are promised or set to have new street sweeping equipment. Is there any update you could provide me with?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. I checked with our corporate office today because we're constantly checking. There is a new sweeper that came in on Friday. Should be here in about 3 weeks. The second one, we're waiting for the street sweeping vendor, if you will, to provide us with an update on that. Sweepers are very, very slow in coming in, but we do have one in finally. So that should be out in about 3 weeks.
Okay. And then another
Okay, for the record, can you please state your name, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. Alex Brekovich with CRNR.
Okay.
Thank you. And another question I have is the delays. Do you have any updates on the trash pickups that you've I know we've gotten better, but I still have continue to hear from residents and myself that my trash is
Sure,
delayed.
Sure. We have had our challenges. I'm not going to sit up here and say we haven't. It has improved considerably since we brought in an individual here at City Hall to track as well. We have many days where we don't have any complaints at all. But it is getting better. Our turnover rate is still a little higher than we would like it to be. Labor market has just changed since the pandemic. There's just no doubt about it. So we have a little bit of a challenge there. But it is getting better. Trucks are slow. We have 3 new trucks that have come in, and we're expecting more trucks to come in. Again, they told me about 3 to 4 weeks. We should be getting more new trucks in, and that'll help as well. So slowly but surely, we're getting there. It's just taking longer than we would like.
Okay, I understand, and thank you for the update. I know that has been one of my concerns, so thank you
Sure.
for answering those
Understood.
questions.
Understood.
Councilman Corona?
Thank you, Mayor. We did receive your letter. In paragraph 2, it says, due to sustained increases in labor expenses, capital improvement costs, regulatory compliance costs, and closed site maintenance, an increase in disposal rates is essential to allow for continued and improved services. What are the improved services that the residents of Paris would expect?
That would be what basically we just talked about. The new trucks are going to help significantly, and each new truck is about $400,000. So it's a significant capital improvement, and we hope to get those new trucks as soon as possible to help improve the service because, quite frankly, our trucks are getting old, and we need to get them replaced. And the problem is not at the body manufacturers. The bodies are waiting. It's the chassis that take forever to come in. So as soon as the chassis come in, then we can have the bodies installed on the chassis.
Okay, are they going to be cleaner trucks? Or are they going to be?
Yeah,
like-
they will all be running on RNG, renewable natural gas. And so all of our trucks now are renewable natural gas. I know that there's a lot of talk about electric trucks out there, but there really isn't an electric trash truck available yet, not one that has been proven. So when the industry catches up to what is required for an electric trash truck, which is quite complicated, I surely don't want to be the first one to get an electric trash truck. There's enough issues with CNG and RNG, so we will stick with the compressed or clean natural gas for as long as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have an additional question, if I may.
Go ahead.
And I'm not sure who it's geared towards, but there are 3 separate fees associated. Are we able to divide or vote separately on one of those 3 different fees? For example, there's a service fee, county disposal fee, and franchise fees. Are we able to?
I think sorry, so to answer your question, Mayor Pro Tem, I think the 3 components make up the one rate. So I don't know if they can be separated, but I'm going to defer my question to our city attorney. Maybe he can answer that question.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree is that it's all part of the same rate and it's part of the same calculation. Not to mention, my understanding is that it's part of the franchise agreement as well. So we wouldn't be able to vote on them separately.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Corona?
So, I think that's a fantastic question. Why were they all lumped up together?
I think Mr. Brekovich can probably answer this better than me, but those are the components of their pricing factors that they give to us and residents. Alex, would you mind? He can probably describe that better than I can.
So standard rates are made up of the 3 components you mentioned. The service component is what we get paid to provide the service. The disposal component is a direct pass-through that we pay the county for the landfill. And the franchise fees, those are what we pay the city per the contract. So they all make up the one rate.
Okay. See, I have concerns regarding that because, like I mentioned, the service hasn't been, as stated in your letter, continued or even improved at the moment for the time being. Yes, there have been improvements, but this was post-pandemic where we've gone through our hurdles. So my next question is, does this mean that with these continued increases, do you have a plan to update your fleet, or does the city of Paris continue to get one of the most rundown fleets was what I was made aware of?
We are striving to improve and get the fleet back up. But I can assure you that the issue with the fleet is throughout the service area. It's not just City of Paris. We have the same issue in other cities as well, because quite frankly, we haven't received the number of trucks that we've ordered. Order from back in 2021 is still not complete. We still haven't received those trucks. So it compounds itself when you don't have those vehicles available. And, you know, we want to get the trucks here as quickly as possible. But unfortunately, the trucks issue is somewhat outside of our control. We can place the order, we can call and call and call and call, but at some point we are at their mercy when it comes to the vehicles. And as soon as they come in, we put them out. But they're just taking a while to get here, unfortunately.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, it's been an issue for a while that, you know, the trash pickups, that they're often breaking down, and that's why was this happening even before the pandemic that you're aware of?
Not to the extent that it happened after.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Councilwoman Rogers, did you have a question? No. Okay. All right, sir. Thank you. Madam Clerk, anybody want to speak on this particular?
No, sir.
All right, anybody who wants to speak on this at this time in the audience on item G? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Oh, that's what I saw your name. Councilwoman Rogers moves, second by Councilman Rab. Please call the vote.
Rogers, Corona, Rapp, Vargas. Yes? Nava, no?
Thank you. Okay, item 11 is our public hearings. We'll allow for public comment during our public hearings. 11A is consideration to adopt proposed resolution numbers next in order regarding annexation of TR 36647 to the City Maintenance District's TR 36647 is located on Evans Road, north of Ramona Expressway. This is the Pulte Home Company, and this is going to be introduced by our city engineer, Mr. John Porcozumi.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Dulce Diaz with Wildan will be presenting this item before you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. TR 36647 is a 90-lot single-family residential development. The project is located on Evans Road, north of Ramona Expressway. As a condition of approval, the project is required to annex into the city's street maintenance district to pay for the benefits and annual costs associated with this property once it is developed. The proposed maximum annual assessment for the project is $116,090. On April 11th, the City Council approved resolutions initiating the annexations for this project and set tonight as the date for the public hearings. At this time, staff is asking the mayor to open and close the public hearing. Following the hearings, the city clerk is to open the ballots. There is one ballot per district. If there is no majority protest, then the City Council can consider the approval of the resolutions confirming the annexation. Unless there are any questions, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dulce. Council, anybody have any quick questions or clarifications or requests? Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing at 6:52. Madam Clerk, do I have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
Is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Okay, Okay, hearing or seeing none, we will close the public comment at 6:52. Or public hearing, I should say. Madam Clerk, please open the 3 ballots.
City of Paris, annexation of TR 36647, Maintenance District Number 84-1. The ballot is marked yes. City of Paris, annexation of TR 36647 to benefit Zone 170, Landscape Maintenance District Number 1. The ballot is marked yes. City of Paris, annexation of TR 36647 to benefit Zone 135, Flood Control Maintenance District Number 1. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to call for a motion on the 3 resolutions. A motion by Councilwoman Rogers, second by Councilman Rab. Please call a vote.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. 11B is consideration to adopt proposed resolution number next in order regarding annexation TR 36647 to CFD 2001-3, North Paris Public Safety District. And this is again for the Pulte Homes, and it'll be introduced by our Director of Finance, Matthew Schenk.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Again, this public hearing will be presented by Dulce Diaz from Wildan Financial.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff, this item is for the same project I previously presented on. Again, on April 11th, the City Council adopted the resolution initiating this annexation. Therefore, we request that the city open a public hearing on this annexation. If there are no protests, adopt the resolution calling for a special election. The property owner has waived the waiting period, so we may conduct the special election tonight. Finally, once the election is conducted, adopt a resolution declaring the results of the election, ordering the annexation, and direct the recording of the notice of special tax lien. And I will be available if there are any questions.
Thank you. All right, this time I'm going to open up the public hearing at 6:55. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
No, sir.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:56. And I'm going to call for a motion on the first resolution. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call a vote.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you open the ballot, please?
Community Facilities, District Number 2001-3, North Paris Public Safety of the City of Paris, Annexation Number 56, Special Tax and Appropriations Limit Election. The ballot is marked yes.
Thank you. Okay, at this time I'll call for a motion on the second resolution. I have a motion by Councilman Rab, second by Councilwoman Rogers. Please call the vote.
5-0, motion approved.
Thank you. 11C is consideration to adopt Proposed resolution number next in order approving tentative track map 21-05271, TTM-38308, and development plan review 21-00018-A. This is a proposal to subdivide 1.2 vacant acres for a 37-unit condominium development and the finding of a project categorically exempt from California Environmental Quality Act. Excuse me. This is going to be introduced by our Director of Development Services, Mr. Kenneth Fung.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. This item will be presented by our Associate Planner, Alfredo Garcia.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Alfredo Garcia. I am your associate planner. As mentioned, this evening we have before you two items, tentative track map 21-05271, which is a proposal to subdivide 1.82 vacant acres into one lot for condominium purposes, and development plan review 21-0018 to facilitate the construction of the 37 condominium unit development. With respect to project location, the project site is located in the Paris Downtown Specific Plan. It has an urban village land use designation and is surrounded by other same land use designation. To the north, we have an existing single-family residence. To the west, we have the Country Hills Apartments. To the east, the Diamond Environmental Services, and to the south, the Paris Villa Apartments. Again, same land use designation as the subject site. This image is taken at the terminus of 2nd Street, looking at the subject site. And this image is taken along G Street, looking northeast at the subject site. As you can see, the subject site is relatively flat, surrounded by residential uses. This is an image of the tentative track map for the 1.82 acres that will be subdivided for the condominium purposes. With respect to the site plan, as mentioned, we have before you the 37 units for 1.8 acres. Access will be taken along G Street for entering and exiting the subject site. The applicant is proposing amenities and recreation areas such as tot lots, barbecue areas, and other open space areas for the residents of the site, as well as proposing 8 guest parking stalls in the center of the site. As for further information, each unit will have solar equipped for each unit, as well as have an EV charging stations for each garage. Planning Commission did recommend that the subject site have an entrance gate and decorative fencing along G Street to secure the site, as well as propose a shade structure over the playground area. Here we have before you the elevations. This is the 4-unit that we'll be seeing along G Street. As you can see, the architecture is modern with vertical articulation. It also provides pop-outs on all 4 sides of the buildings. The color palette is contemporary, but it also introduces the brick veneer, horizontal siding that adds additional further interest to the buildings. And here we have before you the 3 units that will also be seen along G Street. With that said, this evening, the recommendation is for City Council to adopt resolution determining that the project is categorically exempt under CEQA law for infill development and approving Development Plan Review 21-00018 and its associated track map 21-052 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before I open up the public hearing, any quick questions for clarification, council?
Yes.
Councilman Corona?
Thank you, Mayor. What are the minimum parking allocations per each per unit that our city put in place?
It's 2 parking spots,
Two
2
parking
parking
spots?
spaces per unit.
Okay, so they're hitting that tube
That
right
is-
there, and then
that
plus
is correct, sir.
plus extra guest spaces.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
with an additional 8 visitor parking spots.
For
that
visitors.
They're not subject to provide, but the applicant wants to go above and beyond and provide visitor parking for the guests.
Right. Okay. Now, say if there's a unit that does happen to have more than 2, is there parking on G Street allowed currently?
The way the site is designed is that it will provide off-street parking as well.
There are. Okay. So there's currently parking on the street.
Well, and this site will be designed to provide the parking.
Okay. And we're allowing that as a city? Like we are currently allowing that right now? Is that-
That's yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Rab?
Yes, just a question. You mentioned the planning department approved a gate or recommended a gate on G Street. Will the gate or fence extend to the units facing G Street, or will it be like walk up to the door?
The main gate along the axis will be at the end of the throat of the entryway to still provide for, in case of an emergency vehicle needs to come in and wait for the gate to open. So that will be provided at the terminus of the planter that you see. I'm sorry, does that answer the question, or
It's
is there another
half
one?
of the question, but you see how
Okay.
you showed the elevations where there's the door of the different units, and then it faces out toward G Street? If you go back to is there going to be a gate and a fence for each of those doors, or they're just going to be able to, like, say you're walking down G Street, could you walk up to one of the doors and ring on the doorbell, or is there going to be a fence between?
There'll still
those?
be a fence.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes. Quickly.
Councilman Corona?
Yeah. Will there be any aquatic feature in there?
No swimming pool is being proposed.
No swimming pool at all. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a question, so when I get back to my screen. So is that the only entrance? One way in, one way out?
For a vehicle, yes.
For emergency services?
Same.
The same
entrance.
place?
Correct.
Interesting. And so that's the east side, right? G Street? And no, that's the west side. On the east side, that borders residence, it's not a street?
Correct. There will not be a street on the east side.
So they're blocked
of
in
the
all the way
subject
around,
site.
that's why there's only one way in, one way out.
Correct. There's apartments on the east and on the south side.
Okay. Alrighty. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any, at 7:06, do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, sir. Byron Rolando Fuentes Orozco.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, before we start taking in public comment from members of the public, I think it would be good to give the opportunity to the applicant to provide a presentation or however.
Is the applicant here? Let me get my glasses back on. Did you want to speak to the council, sir? Señor, por favor, espera un momento, okay? Gracias.
Yeah, good evening. This is Winston Liu from WW Land Design Consultants. We are architecture and engineer for this project, represent the owner. So thank you, so for the planning commission, city council, it's been long process in about 2 years, to bring this project to this, stage right now. We're very close, so we go through all the, conditions, drafting. Owner side, will comply with all the conditions, planning, provided right now. And we're very excited, very happy to hear, to be here to answer all the questions, so we're very happy, yeah.
Great, thank you, sir. Council, anybody have any further questions? All right, before we bring up the speaker, I failed to mention, I want to give kudos to the planning commission. That was a pretty nice job that they did on the elevations, good-looking condominiums, and the whole plan itself. Okay, pásale por favor, señor.
Good evening.
Estoy en desacuerdo
I'm in disagreement
que se construyan los apartamentos
for these apartments to be built
porque esta propiedad es comercial.
because this property, it's a commercial property, it's not a residential property.
Va a ser más traficada.
There's going to be more traffic.
Estamos hablando de 37, estamos hablando de que vamos a traficar como con 100 o 80 vehículos diariamente.
We're talking about, we're going to be dealing with 80 or 100 vehicles daily.
Entonces, estaría en acuerdo de que construyeran algo comercial para crear más.
Well, I agree that something commercial would be built to create more jobs.
Solo porque estos apartamentos están más cercas a la ciudad, están muy cercas y
The only thing is, the reason is that these apartments are closer, they're too close to the city.
Pérez tiene mucha propiedad todo alrededor.
Because Paris has a lot of property all around.
Eso es lo que estoy desacuerdo.
And that's what I wanted to say, that I'm in disagreement.
Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you.
Anybody else, Madam Clerk?
That is all.
Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this item? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. But before we proceed, we would also have to provide the applicant an opportunity to respond if they desire.
Sir, do you want to come back and respond after that last hearing comment?
Yeah, good evening. My response is, I think we are in the downtown strategic plan. We're in the current zoning with this condominium development project right now. This is not apartment project. Traffic, so we did submit minor traffic study, and city consulting, outside consulting, they all review and approved. I don't remember exactly the detailed number for the daily traffic counts, but that's all the traffic study. It meets the reports, it meets the city requirement, I believe.
Okay.
I think that answer their questions, yeah.
Thank you. Councilman Rabb? Hold on, sir. There's a question for you. Sorry about that.
Just be sure, it's condominiums, individual people.
Is your microphone on?
People will be able to own them.
Yes.
Outright?
Yes.
And is there some fee they pay for the general upkeep? So that is there any?
HOA?
HOA?
Yes, it will be HOA, yes.
Okay, and is there any prohibition for stopping them from painting them different colors? Because I know there's a set over on 7th in Paris where they were condos originally, then the city voted to, back in the 90s, to make them individual ownership. So you have some that are painted blue, some that are painted light blue, some that are painted, will there be like any kind of restrictions, so they couldn't?
Yes,
just go out
it's
there?
under the CCNR, and the HOA, attorney will drafting all the restrictions on there, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add, the city staff would review those CCNRs and HOA before they get finalized and approved.
Typically, I think the answer is yes, yeah. Normally, we submit the drafting of the CCNR to city attorney, they're going to review and approve that, yes.
Okay. Don't move. Anybody else?
Yes.
Councilman Corona.
Yes. Why not put an aquatic feature in there? A small swimming pool for the residents. I mean, there's going to be close to, 70, 80 residents there. Is there any space for an aquatic feature in there?
The first one is not required,
Right.
Yeah, and we already design and provide, additional guest parking and 2 total area, so for the recreation area, so we try our best, but developer also they concern, the density, the performance, so where we're working well, so. Yeah,
Okay.
we provide 2, so barbecue area, try our best, so to perform the designs, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. You can sit down. Who gave the presentation? Mr. Garcia, can you please step up, sir? So, looking at this current slide that's on the screen now, I see what looks like a road behind the east side of the project in between the apartments. That's not a road?
That is the internal circulation of the
Not a public street?
country, correct.
Okay, that's why. All right, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:13. And I will now call for a motion on the resolution. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Nava, second by Councilman Rab. Please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Okay, item 12 is business items not requiring a public hearing. 12A is consideration and discussion of a potential ballot measure concerning a business license tax upon industrial and distribution uses in the city. This will be introduced by our Deputy City Manager, Mr. Ernie Reyna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. The item I have before you is the proposed industrial warehouse and distribution facilities business license tax. So just a little bit of background of where we've been and how we got here. Just going over what we know about what we need to do. We're doing this because we know we need to mitigate the cost of repairing the roadwork in and around the areas of the warehouses. And so there's a couple different ways we can do that. We know the general fund cannot sustain this amount over the repairs that are necessary over the years. And so one way that staff has identified through a consultant that we can get this done is through the use of a business license tax, which would be approved by the voters, and it can raise the necessary funds. We'll go over the amount that we need to raise every year in order to maintain those as well. But what we did do is that back in September, on September 13th, the council did direct staff to look into this particular topic. And staff did do that and contracted with Wilden Financial, who's here, James Edison. I'm going to bring him up in just a little bit. So back on November 29th, staff came forward, presented the item to the council with James in attendance, went over the items, went over the dollar amounts, went over the methodology we used, and that was the first iteration of the staff report and the presentation the council received. A couple months later, back on March 14th, staff once again came back with this item, and at that point, staff presented council with some options. We had various tax rates that were based on square footage of different size buildings. And so at that point, what council directed staff to do was the following. We met with the industrial partners and developers in and around the area. We discussed with them the various uses to determine what the tax rate would be, meaning the different building types that we have. And we also talked about a CPI index to the tax rate itself. Then there soon after, on April 12th, was our first meeting with the developers. So we did meet with them on April 12th of this past year. On May 12th, we did meet with Bill Blankenship as well as Webb to further discuss this particular proposed tax rate. And then what happened after that is that we went ahead and sent out letters to our developers, letters and emails that went out to them, notifying them of this particular date and the potential tax that's going to go on the ballot. And what happened after that as well is a new definition evolved from that meeting. What we have before to what we have now, I'm going to go over that with you. So the new definition of industrial distribution facilities was revised to be the following. We broke it out into two. And so now what we have is a distribution facility as well as an industrial facility. And the definition for a distribution facility we have now is a business consisting primarily of receiving, temporarily storing, and subsequently distributing goods, wares, merchandise of any kind of wholesalers or retailers. Then on the industrial side, the industrial facility, it means either one, a business consisting primarily of indoor or outdoor storage of large trucks, or two, a business consisting primarily of indoor or outdoor manufacturing activity with large trucks. And so these are the definitions we're going over now. And as I've done before, I want to talk about target revenue, how we got here. And when I bring up Mr. Edison from Wilden, he's going to further explain this a little bit more. But again, as I mentioned before, staff did contract with Wilden Financial to get the calculation correct on what we needed to do, what the rate needs to be. And so our engineering staff did provide Wilden with the information needed on the methodology to come up with the dollar amount that we'll see is about $4 million of what we need per year. And it was really looked at long term. And so we looked at this over a 30-year period, and we needed to raise over $120 million over that 30-year period to maintain the roads in and around the warehouses and distribution facilities. And so for this portion, I'm going to call up James Edison from Wildan. He's going to talk about the business license tax and the rate and the methodology from there. So I'm going to go and bring him on up. James? These are just the various ones. You went over that, right? You're good? Okay, all right. Let me take this. Right.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, staff, I'm James Edison from Wildan Financial Services. I've been before you before, but just to remind you. So I'll go briefly over the license tax calculation. Some of this is really, we've been through this before, but as a refresher, and the numbers have changed a little bit, so I wanted to make sure we're current. So in terms of in simple terms, the way we calculate this tax is you've got your target revenue, which is that $4 million a year. The thing to remember about the $120 million is it's actually not distributed evenly year by year. It just depends, because you know how roads are. Roads have a little bit of annual maintenance, and then every larger period of time you need to do a sort of a big chunk of maintenance. But there's no way to have the tax go up and down and up and down and up and down. You want it to be level per year. So we took a long-term view of the maintenance of the road over its life cycle, essentially, and then average that to come up with how much you need on an annual basis. Well, in any one year, you may have more, may have less, but you come out even in the end, I guess, is the idea, basically. So in terms of calculations, you take that annual revenue needed, divide it by the square footage of the defined industrial types, and then that's, it's a quotient, essentially, fifth or sixth grade math, to come up with the amount per square foot that you charge. So we have the target revenue. The next question is, what's the square footage that's applicable? We've defined the square footage, but there's another question, which is, do you look at the square footage that exists right now? Do you look at the square footage that exists plus the square footage that's under construction? You could also look at square footage that exists and under construction and entitled, which means that it's basically ready to go, right? It's got entitlements in place, maybe not a permit yet, but the entitlements. And then the last category would be planned, where either based on the general plan or based on sort of knowledge of what folks are planning on doing, there's sort of a larger category of stuff that's in the works but isn't entitled yet, but is also yet another number. So you can see in the first point there, there's 24.5 million square foot of building space that exists right now. But in addition, you've got 3.2 under construction, you've got 8.9 that's entitled, and 9.4 that's under process or planned. The important thing to note there is that the sum of those three is almost equal to what's in place now. That is to say that by the time you've added all those together, you've basically doubled your square footage. So actually the amount of square footage you count for your calculation actually results in a pretty big swing in the tax rate. But the thing to remember is you really want to hit that target revenue. And so the question is, on the one hand, if you only count, say, what exists now, you're going to end up with a higher tax rate. But by the time everything gets built, you'll actually essentially sort of overshoot that $4 million. On the other hand, if you included everything, including the stuff that's planned, you'd end up with a much lower tax rate. But if all the planned stuff doesn't get built, you won't hit your target revenue, right? And so really the question is where, in that range, what's the right decision? What goes before the voters? So anyway, I'll go on to the next slide. So here we have the sort of proposed sort of methodology, and it's those four categories I talked about, right? It's existing plus under construction and entitled, or then also adding in planned. As you can see there, that tax rate goes from almost $16 a square foot to just over $15 cents a square foot to 8 cents a square foot. You can see that it's about double, right, or about half because of the amount. So of that range, obviously, it seems pretty clear you would include the amount that's in place now. The stuff under construction makes sense to include that too, because it's under construction. It's hard to imagine it's not going to get completed. Entitled also seems quite likely in terms of maybe not right now, but if it's entitled, it's pretty likely to get built in the near future. Well, the plan part's a bit speculative, right? You don't know, plans come and go. So you can see there the staff recommendation for calculated tax is that third option, the completed plus under construction plus entitled, which gets you a tax rate of about 11 cents, 10.7 cents per square foot is I think the staff recommendation. Of course, it's at your discretion to decide which one to do, but given that balance I mentioned about setting the tax, having a reasonable tax rate, ensuring you get your revenue, not overshooting, the certainty of development, mixing those things all together, I think it's staff's judgment that that's the most prudent choice. So then the last is just sort of at that staff recommended rate, what a sample tax payment would be. I'll note there actually that last tax rate, it should be 0.107 per square foot. It's not $1.07 per square foot for the million square foot ones. But you can see just that the simple math is a typical 50,000 square foot space would be paying, just over $5,000 a year. 1 million square feet would be paying just over 100,000 a year, just in sort of rough numbers, to give you an idea of scale. And with that, I think it's back to Ernie to talk about the truck routes. Unless you have any questions for me now, of course, I'm happy to answer them now or at the end of the presentation.
We'll go through the
Yeah,
presentation.
perfect.
All right, so continuing on, what we have now is a map of the truck routes, excuse me. We've shown this before, but just to kind of reiterate what we're looking at, this was provided by our city engineering staff. And what we see here is the Paris city limits, which is the black outline. We see the truck routes, which are in the broken red. And then we see the collector's routes in the broken blue. So if there are any questions related to this, I'm going to defer those over to our city engineer, John Borghesami. Next, what I want to do is kind of give some comparisons of what some of the other cities in the Inland Empire have done with this similar type of tax rate. There are 4 in the area. They're in the San Bernardino County area. Looking at what staff have done some research on these, and we do have some that are out there. City of Redlands, as mentioned before, recently passed, their voters approved their business license tax back in November. That was set at 10.5 cents a square foot, which is very comparable to what we're presenting here today. Both the City of Rialto, City of Fontana are about 7.5 cents a square foot, and then City of Ontario is about 2 cents a square foot, to give you some idea of where they stand with those. As far as timeline and where we stand and where we're going to be, so as mentioned before, we were here before the council on March 14th to get direction. We're now here looking for direction to go forward. And then what happens next is that the latest the ordinance can be on to be approved would have been July 25th. So we're looking to have all the necessary documentation tidied up and over to the Riverside County Register of Voters by August 11th, so that this item can make it to the ballot by November 7th, which of course, because it is a special tax, would require 2/3 voter approval on this one. As far as the cost to implement, we've gone over the numbers, we've looked at these a couple different times, and so we know that the cost for a special election, because it's an off year, is going to be about $105,000. To that, we're adding another $45,000 for public relations firm to help with the voter outreach and stuff like that. So the approximate cost of what we're looking at is about $150,000. As far as staff recommendation, Mr. Edison did mention this, that the third option was our recommendation. And what we're looking to do is, I'm going to read this off here, that staff is recommending that the city council select the option with the maximum total rate of 10.7 cents a square foot, with an annual CPI adjustment increase. However, if that CPI decreases, then staff recommends the tax rate remain unchanged for that tax period. And that is my presentation, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Again, I have Mr. Edison here as well as city staff that will be able to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. All right, before I open up the public comment, or ask for public comment, do any council have any quick questions? We're probably going to go into detail. Let me just see if there's any, well, you know what, there's going to be probably a lot of public comment too, so let's go ahead and we'll go with council first. Councilman Corona.
Okay, I wonder if we could go back to the map, please?
Sure.
Now, in the staff report, we did receive the map, and we only got the north side, the north industrial area.
Oh.
But with the $4 million includes all of Paris, including the south as well, too?
I'm going to defer to John, but I believe the answer is yes. Good.
Good evening, Councilman Corona. That's correct. The southern portion of the town, of the city, is also included in the evaluation.
Okay. And then what about potential areas? Is it just all the entitled, right? Nothing, no, as things may or may not get rezoned, will that change?
Well, we didn't calculate that, as far as any rezone, because we don't have any, validation on that. So what we include is the truck routes that we have in place right now.
Okay. Now, is there any formula that would allow us to remove any industrial that actually pays like e-commerce fees and taxes?
I mean, I guess it's something we could explore. Staff could explore that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilman Rabb?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Going back to the 4 cities in San Bernardino County that approved a similar measure, do you have any information as to what sort of buildings they've included? Were they existing, in process, entitled, or prospective buildings as well?
Yeah, we did look at that. Some of them were complete, some were incomplete, so we gathered what we could. But there was a various amounts and different types of uses being used through these as well. So we gathered what we could on those, and we have some information. But yeah, it was similar to what we're trying to accomplish here.
Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to open up public comment. Madam Clerk, do you have any requests to speak?
Yes, sir. Scott Hildebrandt.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Scott Hildebrandt with Albert A. Webb Associates. I'm here on behalf of a number of the developers here within the city. We were asked to participate in a review of this program, predominantly to look at the target revenue numbers. And as it was presented by the Deputy City Manager, we were in attendance at the April 12th meeting. At that particular point in time, we raised some questions regarding the target revenue number, how it was derived, the number of streets that were included, the methodology by which maintenance is done. As you've heard tonight, and correctly so, the roads in question receive different traffic, and therefore they need a different type of maintenance. So is the maintenance program that's included in here the proper maintenance program? So we requested that information. We were asked to attend a meeting on May 12th. At that particular point in time, we were presented a spreadsheet which has a number of the roads that were to be included in the target revenue. We asked the question at that time, are these all the roads that will be included in that program? We could not be given a positive answer. We asked the question of, on the derivation of the target revenue, where's the background information? What process did you use to come by to evaluate the cost per square foot and the program? We were not provided that at that point in time. We asked for that information. We're still asking for that information. So based on what we have, it's very difficult for me to turn around to any of the folks that are being asked to pay for this particular tax and be able to tell them that, yes, these are the roads that are, all the roads that are going to be in the program. Yes, this is the right calculation for the fee until we have additional information. So with that, unfortunately, I'm not able to confirm the information provided by the city at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Blankenship.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council and staff. My name is Bill Blankenship, representing NAIOP Inland Empire Chapter, the association that represents the commercial industrial industry. It's my pleasure to come before you this evening. I'd like to begin by thanking the City Council for asking your staff to meet with the industry. As you heard from Mr. Hildebrandt, there was a couple of meetings, one with a small group of invested partners in your community, and then there was a smaller meeting of just Scott Hildebrandt and myself to talk technical issues. And as you heard from his testimony, I think it's our opinion that we're not ready yet to go forward. And I know the council is not being asked to go forward this evening, but you are certainly being asked to make a fairly hard recommendation so staff can go back and draft wording for a ballot measure that you can ultimately adopt in the next couple of council meetings. So we firmly believe that more time is needed. Also, this meeting tonight was billed as a workshop for the industry, and I don't believe it's really a workshop, unfortunately. I think there really needs to be a workshop that happens in a room with staff to talk to everybody who wants to give their opinions on how they believe this proposed tax would impact their business, or the ownership, or those who own land, and how it would impact the value of their land. So clearly, we believe the process needs more time. As you heard tonight from your staff, staff is recommending number 3. If, from our opinion, we certainly believe that number 4 or even number 5, number 5 is not even an option in your staff report, that you take into account the buildings or the future projects that will occur over the next 30 years. It was also referenced that the city of Redlands just adopted a ballot measure, and that was really a re-upping. And their current rate is about 4.6 cents, and they will top out at 10.5. That's why they were going back to the ballot. So they certainly have the ability to capture new projects that will come along in the pipeline. And I think you as a city need to have a similar mechanism as this project will be some 30 years. In addition to that, there's a CCI that's built into this, a construction cost index, and never will the fee go down, but the way it's presented in the staff report, it always goes up or stays neutral. We really believe, as I said, more time is needed. And even if that means going to the March ballot, which I know some of the council members expressed they want to go in November, even if that's what is required, I think if we're going to hurry it and not get it right, I don't think that's something this council should do, from my view. And finally, I'd like to thank the city council again for having staff work with us. We're available to work with staff and continue to work with staff until we get this right. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is all.
Anybody in the audience at this time wishing to speak on this item? All righty. Council, any further discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to. Councilman Corona?
Oh, yes. Mr. Scott Hildebrand brought up some questions and said that during the meeting that you guys had, we weren't ready to answer those questions at that time. Do we have answers to the questions at this time?
With respect to those, I believe they were related to engineering sheets. John, can you speak to that?
If I may, to be concise, Councilman Corona, the arithmetic is pretty simple. You calculate the roadway lengths, widths, curb to curb, the roadways, and we included all the truck routes. And the formula that we use is the typical or standard street maintenance schedule that we utilize. Is common throughout all pavement structural sections and so forth. So we use that formula to be consistent throughout.
Okay, now from your experience, comparing a truck route to only a passenger vehicle route, are truck routes seeing more damage than, say, a passenger vehicle route?
That is correct. And when we design truck routes, the standard is to design for truck load. That's again, standard practice to design structural pavement sections.
Okay, so they cost more to maintain?
Correct.
I take it, okay. Thank you.
My question is for Mr. Reyna. In your presentation, you said you sent out a number of letters.
Yes.
I can't remember the exact number. How many again?
It was over 160 letters and over 80 emails. So we had a list of all the industrial developers. So it's trying to find this one. Where did I have it at? Somewhere here. I know it was over 160.
I thought it was 160, but I wanted to be sure. Of
Somewhere
all
right
of
here.
those letters that were sent out, what kind of response have we received from those?
I received personally one email, and it was asking to see the ballot language, which we don't have yet. And I did let them know that when it is available, it'll be made available to everyone. But that's all I've seen. I have not seen anything.
So one response to one email
Yes,
and no response to any of the 160 letters?
I have not personally seen any. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
There's nobody else in the queue? So I keep hearing that we did not provide them information. I'm not sure. I apologize. I was doing something over here. Was that question brought up? That was brought up by Councilman Corona? And I'm sorry, and your answer was that yes, information was given?
That is correct. That's the only information that is required.
Okay.
So the square footage of the roadways and the standard and, roadway maintenance schedule.
Got it. I understand, and I appreciate the two gentlemen that came up to speak. I personally know a lot of developers, and nobody reached out to me other than these two gentlemen who are not developers, but they represent developers, but I still did not receive a comment from anybody, so, anyway. And our roads, we hear it. I know my council members here, but I take the heat of it because I'm the mayor, so I'm responsible for everything, and I get blamed all the time for potholes, We equally here, not just the mayor. But, these trucks are doing the damage to our roads. A car does not damage the road. And until we hopefully get our truck routes enforced by our police, once our signs are done, it's hopefully going to help our connector roads. Connector roads are not generally built for truckloads. I'm not an engineer, so correct me if I'm wrong. Whereas truck routes or near the vicinities of our industrial logistical warehouse areas, roads are built for truckloads with concrete intersections. I'm good so far?
That's correct, but just to indicate, yeah, we actually design all roadways based on like traffic indices and axle roads, but the truck routes are specifically designed for trucks.
Right.
And loads.
And our connector roads are the ones that are getting torn up because our trucks are driving on those. And I guess I shouldn't say connector roads, because we have a lot of roads that aren't connector roads that the truck shouldn't be on, and they are tearing up our streets. In particular in residential neighborhoods when we have private business truck drivers and what have you. But anyway, I believe in this tax. I know that we can't make everybody happy, but again, it's going to go to our people. They're going to make the decision, not the council. We're going to let them make that decision. But we need help in protecting our roads. We get some money from SB1, Measure A. It's not enough to do our entire city. So anyway, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse here. So at this time, I'll call for a motion on the item. Did you want to bring back your motion?
Absolutely.
So everybody can see it again, just for one more time.
There it is.
All right, everybody's got a good glimpse. Go back to your voting section. I'm looking for a motion on this.
Yeah. I wonder if I can see the verbiage again to see exactly what we're.
For the recommendation?
Yes.
Yeah, it
And
should,
then-
should be up. It's
And then it would now be the time to maybe just kind of discuss about different industrial that actually brings in more revenue than what they're even required here. So say like e-commerce, I think maybe it's worth it just to look into possibly excluding them, seeing how they're already paying.
Right.
So some of them are $100+ $1 million plus. As opposed to some of the other ones that are the same size.
Sure.
But they're only bringing in.
A little bit, yeah.
I don't know.
So,
Minimal.
Councilman Corona, I did look at that, examine it, and I looked at the top, we got Wayfair, Amazon, and Home Depot. And the buildings I looked at were about 4.5 million square feet. So if you were to extract that from the formula, what that would do is increase the price for everybody else, the cost of that. And I can actually show you that, what we put together really quick, if you'd like to see that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Hopefully you can see this. So it's essentially the same spreadsheet you saw before, but on the right-hand side, it says e-commerce exemptions. And so what it does, if we're looking, if I can direct your focus down to the bottom where it says, or in the middle where it says staff recommended, you see the proposed tax rate is at the 10.7. If you go over 2 columns, that goes up to about 12.2 cents because we no longer have that 4.5 million in square footage. And what that does is that it increases the square foot price by about, 1.5 cents, something like that. So it drives the price up. As an option, what you could do as well, if you do not want to do that and leave it at 10.7 cents, then what we do is we lose the revenue from those particular e-commerce, and that would equate to about $500,000 a year. So that's another option. So you can either exclude them and then just not get the revenue from them, leave the rate as is and move forward with it, or have everybody pick up that cost and go from 10.7 cents to 12.2 cents.
Okay.
So just different ways you can play
do
that.
have our friends from NAOP expressed an opinion on that?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
If I may, Councilman Corona, one thing to consider is there could be potential changes in the future regarding the sales tax in California, which could, at some point, possibly these e-commerce facilities not be allocating 100% of the sales tax to the city. That's still unknown, and that's still in talks. It's not a conversation that's still happening throughout the state. So there's that to think about. If you choose to leave the tax as is, no change, other than exempting those e-commerce facilities, the loss would be about $500,000 a year from the $4 million. So that's just something to consider. But for now, the proposal is to do a maximum tax rate of 10.7 cents per square foot. We would come back with a resolution after the ballot measure with an actual
Yes,
ordinance
at the
or resolution
next
to
meeting.
set the amount.
Right.
Okay, and then just like, I'm not sure if you have that number, but how much do we receive from e-commerce currently?
Matt, any idea? I'll put you on the spot here. I'm trying to think, I mean, without giving out too much specific detail that's, confidential, I can tell you that it is our higher, amounts that we do get from some of these retailers.
But it's well over 500,000, right? Okay, right.
Yes,
That's
correct.
kind of my point.
Correct.
So what I'm thinking is just, if say there's e-commerce that's potentially coming in here, and they might see that, they might think about going somewhere else. But if they see, hey, if we go to Paris, we're actually excluded from that.
Right.
They might be still willing to come.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a huge proponent of warehouses, but if I'll take an e-commerce and not an e-commerce. And then my last comment I want to just kind of make is that I've talked to developers, and they always come here and say they want to be part of our community. They want to help our community. They're here for the long run. I think that they care about our roads because they're truck drivers.
Absolutely.
Drive on our roads, so they want us to have safe roads, nice smooth roads that the workers that also go into those facilities want to drive on nice safe roads as well too. Absolutely. So that's my comments there. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Okay, we're still at the same point where I last left off. We're looking for a motion.
I have one more question. So for the entitled buildings, would we come up short to meet the amount, or how would that work, since that's one of the last options and it's a pretty good chunk of money?
Sure. So if we're looking at our option of 10.7 and we remove the entitled buildings, then you remove 9 million square feet, which would then drive up the price higher than that. So it basically come up to that second option. So now we're looking at 14 cents if we remove the entitled projects.
Thank you.
Anybody else or a motion?
But the recommendation is the 10 point.
That's correct. Staff is recommending the 10.7.
That's their recommendation. You guys can make another recommendation if you want on a motion. No one seems to be moving on 10 cents.
Yeah. No, I'm okay with it. It just I do want to maybe kind of give a reward to those that are e-commerce. So if I'd be willing to make a motion, but just kind of exclude that. I'm not sure if I have any support on that, but I think since they've been paying such a high number, now if things change, we could always have to come back to the voters. But is this the time to do it? I mean, will that be on the ballot measure?
I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
I'm asking.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Ernie, could you switch back to the recommendation? So if the proposal, let's just say, sounds like Councilmember Corona wants to potentially add a proposal to exclude e-commerce, so we would have to build that into the ordinance, into the ballot measure, and if in the future we would want to tax them in the future, then we would have to submit another ballot measure. On the other hand, the council could do this tax, the plan is to do this tax as a maximum tax, so it allows the council to adjust the rate of the tax by resolution, similar to our cannabis tax, essentially. And kind of similar there, we can also establish any kind of deduction or exemptions that we may want to create. Now, again, the maximum rate we can't exceed. essentially. But we can temporarily reduce what we collect on a voluntary basis, and then in the future, similar to the cannabis tax, we can eliminate that exemption if we would want to. The key is that we don't exceed the 10.7 cents. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so we can't come back after the voting,
Right,
you know,
so-
after the residents vote and exempt them.
Right, so if you include the exemption as part of what's sent to the voters, you can't get rid of the exemption without going back to the voters. But if you leave the exemption out and you adopt it as is, we can include, with direction from the council, obviously, we can include language in the ordinance to allow the council to basically add in exemptions and deductions, kind of like how we did with the cannabis tax, to allow the council in the future to adopt a policy or a resolution that would allow for those types of exemptions and those types of deductions with kind of more,
So
you
it's
know-
better to put all your apples in now and you can pull them out with the
Correct.
resolution afterwards.
Yes.
I think
And
that's
obviously,
the
if you go
better
with
route to go.
if you go with the 10.7 cents, then, you know, if we can certainly reduce it down to, say, 5 cents per square foot, see what that collects, and then go on from there. And perhaps down the road, you know, 10 years down the road, more gets built, we think we're collecting too much, and then we can reduce it as that goes. I do want to clarify with respect to the revenue, because this is a tax, we're collecting revenue. We don't have to tie it to any kind of calculation at all. So we just have to do an estimate of the annual revenue that we would collect based upon this calculation. So, you know, I do want to clarify that for council.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Corona.
Just to clarify, that motion is to approve staff's recommendation for the 10.7, including developed, in process, and entitled buildings?
It's just the way the staff recommended.
Okay, I'll second that.
I have a second by Councilman Rab. Please call the vote.
Five oh, motion approved.
Thank you. Item 13 is our council communications. Councilman Rab.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Vargas. On a couple Fridays ago, I had the opportunity to attend senior prom. I would like to thank our community services department for putting on a wonderful event. I was actually en route to attend the League of Cities event at the Lake Elsinore Storm Stadium when I received news that there was a gas line explosion. So I went over to the senior prom, and it was a great experience. I hadn't been to one in about 4 years. We had 2 years where the pandemic had curtailed it, and then last year I wasn't able to attend. So just want to give kudos to staff for putting on a great event. Seniors were extremely happy. Everybody had a very good time. This past Wednesday, I spoke at the APAC, the African American Parent Advisory Committee for Paris High School. It was good seeing all the graduates, all the freshman students moving to sophomores moving to juniors, and juniors moving to their last year of high school. So just gave them an update on the city, encouraged these kids to continue in their education. A lot of them have been affected by the pandemic over the last few years. I just want to wish everyone, hopefully everyone had a happy Mother's Day, and just want to wish everyone a happy graduation. I know Paris High School, they're graduating June 7th. So just want to congratulate the class of 2023. They spent a lot of time with the pandemic. I think the first 2 or 3 years of their high school experience were either virtual or hybrid. So just want to congratulate them on pursuing and persevering through their high school years to graduate. So that concludes my comments for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Corona?
Thank you, Mayor. I too did go to the senior prom. Just a fantastic event. Staff did a wonderful job, and the volunteers too. I know Val Verde Unified School District sent their police explorers out there that kind of helped out and kept dancing with the seniors as well too. Just an overall great event. Just very happy to support that event. CPRS, I did attend with Councilwoman
Mayor
Nava,
Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem Nava, and the mayor as well too. Just a wonderful event. I want to thank staff for organizing those meetings. I think we made a lot of great connections and good, very good things coming to Paris. And then lastly, I did attend yesterday with the VFW, they put on an event at the Paris Cemetery where they were reading off all of the 570 or so vets that are buried and interred at our Paris Cemetery. So vets all the way from the Civil War all the way to Vietnam War. Just a great way to remember our vets here in Paris. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rogers.
I also got to attend the senior prom, and we had a great time crowning the new king and queen of the senior prom. And it's wonderful to see our seniors dress up in their costumes and have a wonderful time. They were very into the theme this year of the Aladdin Nights and everything. So, and May and June is always the time of year where we see our graduates. So I just want to congratulate all of our high school graduates this year. And as they go on to college, wish them the best and congratulate the parents for making sure that they've stayed the course. And it's a wonderful time for the families. And that's all I have. Lakers loss.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I too wanted to just thank our VFW Post and the American Legion for hosting the Memorial Day ceremony here at our Paris Valley Cemetery. And then we also, as Councilmember Corona mentioned, I attended ICSC. Sorry, I think he attends so many conferences. He had a little mix-up, but just to clarify, we attended ICSC, which basically is where we connect with business owners, retail developments, and we've all seen the great boom we've had here in the city of Paris, and that this is just one intentional way to continue fostering and growing that. So great thank you to our city staff who does such a phenomenal job in gathering all our meetings and making sure that all our travel arrangements are taken care of. And then also, too, a great congratulations to all our graduates. And those are all my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Excellent. Nobody mentioned State of the City, where the mayor's debut playing drums with Orange Vista Drumline. They say you know, our State of the Cities are getting better every year. This year was really awesome, really good turnout. So staff, thank you. Staff. This is the chamber. Gets kudos for that one. So good job from our Chamber of Commerce. They both referenced the ICSC, and that's unfortunately we can't brag yet of what we discussed with future potential retailers here in our city, but we had some really good talks, as both my colleagues said here, and there's just way more exciting things going to be happening in Paris. We had a great Empowering Your Mind conference for our youngsters from our high schoolers. Staff, thank you for that presentation. Ribbon cutting for Mariscos La Tambora. I'm not into mariscos myself, but it was a pretty nice restaurant. It's a Sinaloa style mariscos, fish food. This young man, I couldn't have been over 24 years old, came from Sinaloa to the United States, in particular here in Paris, to open up a business here because according to him, there is no Sinaloa style mariscos in our city. So kudos to him. Paris Menifee Student of the Year. It's always great to go to the Student of the Month, but the Student of the Year tops it off. And they already spoke about our Memorial Day ceremony, which was really great. That's it for me. Item 14 is our City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I have one announcement. The Community Services Department will continue to host movies in the park throughout the summer. Please visit our social media for upcoming events. The next movie will be Onward, to be held on Friday, June 16th at Liberty Park. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All righty. All right, item 15, our adjournment. Unfortunately, here we go again, but tonight we're going to be adjourning in memory of Deputy Brett Harris, who passed away, the line of duty, on May 13, 2023. Deputy Harris from our Riverside County Sheriff's Department, assigned to the Hemet Station. Very good. So our thoughts and prayers go to his family and to our men in our green and khaki uniforms, to all our police, to his brothers and sisters in the law enforcement world. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming out.